How not to get bothered, angry, annoyed and irritated by other people. Let's face it, there's much more risk of that now that quarantine and lockdown are ending and we're all attending all manner of events, maybe masked, maybe not. You're having to have interactions with people again. Now, I noticed during the lockdown and quarantine period that I felt a lot less stress, and it was only a few weeks in that I realised that that's because much of my stress comes from relationships with other people. Thankfully, my immediate familial relationships are quite good and there is strong communication. So I suppose let's break this up into categories. There's being bothered by people that you live with. I've been told by the experts that guide me, good communication always. Now, how I have to ensure that that communication doesn't make things worse is by taking my own resentments out of the situation first. If I need to talk to my wife about something potentially contentious, marital matters of a nocturnal variety, or financial matters, I try to take the heat out of it first. I try to stay plainly with the facts about how I'm feeling, and I try not to be blaming. I should emphasize that I often err in these areas, but I feel that if you're in the people you're in relationships with, whether that's flatmates or romantic partners or family members of another description, you are part of the same vision, hopefully, the vision of the household, the vision of the relationship. If you don't have a shared vision with people, it's likely there would be conflict. When the real trouble starts for me is when I have to go out in the world and deal with the arbitrary encounters that come my way. This is what I have found helps me, is to remain inwardly in a place of kindness and compassion with continual recognition that there is nothing to get. Otherwise, anything can irritate me. An altercation, not even an altercation, just different objectives or conflicting intentions with a neighbour, that can send me into paroxysms. I had to have a conversation recently about sort of a semi-contentious matter. It's never easy to have these kind of conversations. What I did is I spoke to a few people first about, look, this is what I'm feeling, so that I got the opportunity to exercise the things that were bothering me. Then the best bit of advice I got was with someone, a friend of mine in America, who told me, when you're dealing with someone, deal with them as your brother or sister from a place of love, from a place of love. Recognize that there's nothing to get. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. I took this to heart. I explained what I wanted as best as possible. I stayed away from my emotions, but I did explain how I felt. I watched when there was moments where I felt like I wanted to escalate, and in those moments I stayed with my breathing. The fact is, I suppose, that the inner world is limitless and the external world, to a degree, is limited. What I am saying is that if we have good inner connections, it's possible to deal with outside world, which is obviously where relationships happen, in a more convivial, less agitated manner. So for me, that means the maintenance of serenity, staying calm. Now, when it's just arbitrary encounters, like a lot of people in recovery, a lot of people that are addicts, I can be volatile. So like it don't take much. I have to really watch myself. What I mean by that, volatility for me usually comes about as a result of my ego, in spite of all of the spiritual work I've done, in spite of the delightful kimonos, and thank you, Rita, for this, that I adorn myself in. I am still capable of being quite self-centered and egocentric. And when I'm in self-centered egocentrism, then I am dependent on the outside world for validation. That means every potential encounter is a potential conflict. I find it hard to recall the truth that every single person I meet is a person with their own life, their own story, their own fears, their own birth and their own death. Sometimes I'm bloody well great. No, I don't get into that kind of territory. What I'm saying is that what I have to do is if I'm in the throes of my own ego, which tells me that I'm not enough, nothing will ever be enough, that I'm going to lose all the things that I have and I won't get what I want. If I'm living in that mental space, then I go vampirically into every relationship, whether that's with someone I love and know well or with a passerby, with this unconscious, unaddressed need. How to avoid getting annoyed, angry and irritated with other people is to ensure that you do the work on yourself. The basic things: are you eating well? Are you sleeping enough? Are you conscious about what you're doing for a living? Are you addressing the fears you have? In the situations in your life where you're not in control, maybe you're in a difficult relationship, maybe your work is threatened, maybe you are under financial pressure. How are you contemplating and dealing with that fear? What are you doing for yourself? Who is advising you? What is your strategy? Not that you necessarily have to have some advanced strategy, but it's nice at least to have counsel. It's nice at least to address the things that are on the perimeter of your awareness that are threatening you. So the first thing to do, I suppose, is deal with yourself. Ensure as best as possible that you are in a calm, serene place. Then you're in a better condition to deal with other people. The thing is with me, and I don't know about you, is I have to do that work because I'm crazy. My life has shown me that there is no point of destination where I think, oh, wow, I'm enlightened now. I've had these advanced experiences where I feel complete loss of self and interconnectivity with all things, and that the senses are just curating a limited reality and I'm plugged into the great oneness. I have experiences like that, but then I still got to, deal with people. Could have an altercation over parking. Someone might look at me the wrong way. The ego, all these strategies that I evolved in the past to protect me and make me feel, if not powerful, then not totally impotent, all kick into gear, kick into being. We must live, in order to be free, the spiritual life. The spiritual life means the prioritization of timeless and eternal principles, such as integrity, honour and compassion, over transient ideas such as what I need, what I want. I'm on this pathway with you, perhaps sometimes ahead of you, frequently behind you. Increasingly, I believe that look, you do meet some people that seem like they're plugged in eternally. Your Eckhart Tolles, your Sadhgurus, even Brené Brown, although Brené Brown, of course, continually admits her fallibility and vulnerability and makes much of it. But for most of us, it's going to be an ongoing journey. I heard recently that in some Buddhist teaching, right at the beginning, they go, just so you know now, you're never going to get there. You're never going to be enlightened. So let yourself off the pressure. Let yourself off the pressure of that. I reckon now we're going out of quarantine, out of lockdown, into ordinary, if masked, commedia dell'arte relationships. We must be compassionate for one another, recognise that we're all operating at a slightly heightened and enhanced pace, that we have all been jacked up with fear for a while. We're all concerned about our financial futures. We're all concerned about the future of the planet. We're all concerned that after such a catastrophic, cataclysmic event, we're all just gently, inertly being ushered back into the ordinary games and activities that preceded this opportunity for learning. So with the small things, the small relationships, the small encounters with people, practice compassion and tolerance. With yourself, practice ongoing awakening and awareness, so that the encounters that you have in the outside world do not define you and determine you, and are therefore not so high stake, and therefore don't trigger or provoke you into extreme action, or at least activity that you yourself aren't happy with. Get yourself a program of recovery, recovering from the person that you used to be, recovering the person you're intended to be. Evolve a community of like-minded people that can support you, and develop a spiritual practice that suits you, not a dogma that's been handed down to you, unless that dogma really it suits you and you vibe with it, baby. There is an answer even to the minutiae and trivia of altercations with strangers, and to larger, more difficult conflicts. And the answer is usually held with the practice that we carry out on our own to connect us to our higher selves.